in the last video, we learnt what is weathering, how different types of agents act on the rocks and cause different types of weathering, namely mechanical or physical weathering, chemical weathering and biological weathering. So after weathering takes place, it goes on to the process of erosion. Erosion is the carrying away of the weathered rocks from one place to another. And this eventually leads to the soil formation. So how does that take place? Well, we must understand that soil is very important for farmers because they grow crops on those soil and we get those crops in the form of finished food products. Right? So we know that soil is very important for the farmers as well as for us. Now, what exactly is soil? Well, if you need to understand that, you must understand how soil is formed, right? So soil is formed when rocks are weathered away and it is carried from one place to another. So what do you see here? You see a farmer carrying soil. So we know that soil contains rocky material and decayed organic matter or humus. So rocks tend to expand in the daytime and contract during night due to the change in the temperature, right? So after this takes place, it leads to the cracking up of rock or breaking up of rock, which finally breaks it into smaller pieces. These weathered rocks are eventually carried away due to different agents helping them from one place to another. And where they are deposited, they lead to soil formation. Therefore, soil is a valuable resource formed by the weathering of rocks. Also, it is an important part of the uppermost layer of the Earth's crust and is a mixture of fine powdered rocky material, as we have just learned, and decayed organic matter called humus. So what exactly is humus? We will learn about it as we succeed. Right. So we just understood that soil formation doesn't take place so easily and it also takes a lot of time. So factors that affect or influence the soil formations are very important. So what exactly are the factors? If we have to name them, they are time. So soil formation takes place over 1,000,000 years or over 1,000 years. It doesn't take place overnight. The second factor is the parent material. So the rock which is leading to the formation of a soil is very important. The soil type or the properties of a certain soil can only be determined when we know from which rock the soil has been formed. So the parent rock or the parent material plays an important role in the type of soil. Therefore, this is the second important factor. Other than that, we have topography. So where the weathering of the parent rock takes place is also important. Where the soil is being formed or deposited is to be taken into account. Therefore, topography plays an important role. Soil differs with topography. The soil on the hill slope may be very different from that on a flat alluvial or fertile land, right? So topography is another important factor. Other than that, we have climate. So climate too plays an important role. We learn about it. The temperature changes, the type of climate in the different parts of the world also plays important role in the different types of soil. And lastly, we have microorganisms. So you remember we were talking about organic matter being an important part of the soil? Well, the formation of this organic matter is because of the presence of microorganisms in the soil. And how does it do that? We will learn about it. So let's learn how each factor influences the soil formation in details. Let's take a look at the first important factor, that is the parent rock. So you must have heard or seen that pottery making requires clay soil. But where exactly does this clay soil come from? Well, if you take a look here, we see that mudstone and shale, both after weathering and erosion, leads to the formation of the clay soil. Therefore, clay soil is a result of the weathering and erosion of these two rocks. Therefore, here we can say that mudstone and shale are the parent rock of the clay soil. Let's take another example. So what do we have here? We see that sandy soil is made out of sandstone. So what does this imply? This simply tells us that sandstone is the parent rock which, after undergoing weathering and erosion, has eventually led to the formation of the sandy soil. Another very interesting example is that of the black soil. Yes, isn't the name very interesting? Well, the black soil too has been formed after the weathering and erosion of the parent rock basalt. Therefore, basalt, after going under weathering and erosion, has led to the formation of the black soil. Therefore, these three examples tells us that parent rock is very important to understand the properties or the type of soil. So, there are different types of soil depending upon the parent rock or the rock from which they have been formed. So before moving on, can you help me answer this question? Black soil is formed from which parent rock? Is it the sandstone, or is it the basalt, or mudstone, or is it shale? Yes, as we have just learned that basalt is the parent rock which, after undergoing weathering and erosion, leads to the formation of the black soil. Now let's understand another important factor. So we know that at daytime the rocks tend to expand due to thermal expansion, and at night time they tend to contract due to lowering of temperature, that is thermal contraction. Right? So this continuous expansion and contraction leads to breaking of rocks. Rain, as another important climatic condition, plays equally important role in the weathering of the rocks. So these weathered rocks eventually break down into smaller and smaller pieces and then gets carried away, that is, get eroded from one place to another and leads to the formation of soil. So we just learned how parent rock and climatic conditions affect or influence soil formation. Let's learn about the third factor, that is topography. Now, how exactly the topography plays a role in the soil formation? Well, if we take a look at different types of slope, like a steep slope or a gentle slope. So the erosion or the weathering of the rocks takes place at a different rate due to the different types of slopes. The rocks that are weathered on a steep slope due to the agents of rain acting on it, it gets eroded and then deposited on the foothills. While on a gentle slope, after weathering and erosion takes place, the soil is formed on the very gentle slope. It is not pulled down to the foothills. Now, why is it different? It is all because of the gravitational pull of the earth. So in a steep slope, the gravity of the earth acts more rapidly or more faster, while on a gentle slope, the pull of the gravity is less as compared to a steep slope. Therefore, accumulation of weathered rock materials is less on the steep slope, while it is more on the gentle slope because of the gravitational pull of the earth. So we just learnt how parent rock, how the climatic conditions and the slope of the land or the topography affects or influences the soil formation. So let's learn about the fourth factor, that is the microorganisms' role in the soil formation. So you know that dead plants and animals on the surface of the earth are decomposed by the microorganisms, which eventually leads to the formation of organic matter called humus. This humus increases the fertility of the soil and leads to healthier crop production. Right. So till now we have understood how different factors play important role in the formation of soil. We must also understand that these take thousands of years, and the soil formation, as it takes place over the years again and again, it forms different horizontal layers, right? So we understood here that over the years, soil formation takes place in different horizontal layers, right? So if we take a look at these different horizontal layers, we get the view of the soil profile. Therefore, a view of the different layers of the soil gives us the soil profile. Therefore, soil profile is nothing but a view of the different layers of the soil. So let's learn about each layer in details. So we understood that soil can be divided into 4 distinct layers or horizons, right? So if we divide the soil into 4 different layers, these are how we can name them. So the uppermost layer of the soil is the topsoil. This topsoil contains the humus, that is the organic matter, which helps in increasing the fertility of the soil, and it also affects the crop production. The second layer is the subsoil. Therefore, the subsoil falls just below the topsoil, and it usually contains larger fragments of sediments, and it is mostly known as a storehouse of moisture. Following the subsoil, we have the third layer, and that is the substratum layer. The substratum is also known as the layer containing the weathered rock materials. So the last layer, or the fourth layer below the 3 horizons, is the bedrock. This bedrock usually contains the parent rock which has been eroded and weathered over the years. So these were the 4 horizons, or the 4 distinct layers of the soil. So out of those 4 different horizons, the 2 important layers are the topsoil, which contains the humus or the organic matter, which helps in the growth of plants and crops. And then we have the subsoil, or the second layer, which is usually known as the storehouse of moisture. Right? It contains larger fragments of sediments and plays an important role in providing enough minerals and water to the crops or plants. So till now we have learnt how soil is formed. We also learned how different factors influence the soil formation, and then we learnt about the different layers of the soil. We learnt that the soil can be divided into 4 distinct layers, namely the topsoil, followed by the subsoil, then the substratum, and lastly the bedrock. We also learned that out of those 4 distinct layers, the 2 most important layers are the topsoil and the subsoil. So now let's see how soil plays an important role in our lives. So what do you see here? The heading reads, healthy soil ensures healthy living, right? We will justify this particular statement as we go on. So the first important point says that soil can hold on to pollutants. And what are these pollutants? These include living organisms, harmful chemicals, minerals, and only let clean water through. So we have been learning, or some of us know, that water seeps into the layers of the soil. So when water seeps into the layers of the soil, they get filtered again and again, and eventually we have the groundwater, the clean groundwater. We often have seen people directly consuming the groundwater from the tube wells or the wells. Why is it so? Because the water is actually very clean, right? This is all because of the water filtration. So the water gets filtered as it seeps through the different layers of the soil, and it eventually leads to the storage of the groundwater, and which is very, very clean. So here soil plays an important role in holding on to the harmful chemicals and the different kinds of pollutants and gives us or provides us with clean water. Then we have the action of microorganisms. So we just learned a while ago that microorganisms act on the dead plants and animals, which lead to the formation of humus, that is the organic matter. This increases the fertility of the soil. So more the action of microbes on these dead plants and animals, more the formation of organic matter or humus, and more fertile is the soil, which leads to a healthier crop production. So it is important to monitor these microorganisms present in the soil, which detoxify the pollutants and increase the soil fertility. So as we learned that soil holds on to the pollutants and the different kinds of harmful chemicals, well, these are detoxified with the help of these microorganisms. Therefore, they play a very important role in keeping the soil fertile and healthy. Lastly, soil is the second largest carbon sink after the oceans. Now, what exactly do we mean by carbon sink? Sink basically means store. So, they store a huge amount of carbon dioxide in the different layers. Now, this helps in regulating the climate. And how does it do that? Well, the carbon dioxide absorbed by the plants is used by them in the process of photosynthesis, that is, the process of making food. So when they are left with extra carbon dioxide, it is then distributed through the roots under the ground. So it is not let out of the surface. So this is actually called carbon cycling. So the carbon dioxide in the atmosphere that was absorbed by the plants for the process of photosynthesis, the extra carbon dioxide is now being distributed. Therefore, it is being stored. It is being stored in these layers, and that is why these are known as carbon sink. Now, once they are stored in the different layers, they are not being let out. These extra carbon dioxide, if were out in the atmosphere again, would lead to the increase of temperature of the earth, leading to global warming. So now that they are stored below the surface and not let out, it helps in regulating the climate. It helps in keeping the temperature at balance and not leading to the increase in temperature that would harm the environment. Therefore, the soil acting as a carbon sink or a carbon storehouse actually regulates the climate through carbon cycling. They store the extra carbon dioxide in the layers and does not let it out, therefore regulating the climate or balancing the climate. Therefore, we learned that the soil plays an important part in our lives, right? It gives us clean water or helps in water filtration. It also provides us with healthy crops because the microorganisms that is present in the soil is detoxifying the pollutants and also providing it with organic matter or humus, which increases the fertility of the soil. Then we learned that the soil also acts as a carbon sink. Therefore, it stores the extra carbon dioxide and regulates the climate. So, soil plays an important role in our lives. So, today in this video, we learned how the soil is formed, right? We also learned that different factors influence the formation of the soil, and then we learned that the soil can be divided into different layers, into 4 horizons, and the 2 most important layers are topsoil and subsoil. We also learned that soil plays an important role in our lives by water filtration, by giving us healthy crops, and by regulating the climate. So in the next video, we'll learn about conservation of soil. Now, since soil is so important and provides us with so many things, it is also our duty to protect the soil or conserve the soil. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel and hit the bell icon. You can also register for free at DeltaStep.com or download the DeltaStep app to learn one-to-one with our amazing teachers or to get access to all our 5,000 plus amazing videos as per your school syllabus. Master each topic with our adaptive practice technology. Get million-plus questions with step-by-step solutions and unlimited mock test. Get all your doubts resolved instantly. Learn via games and win amazing prizes like PlayStations and iPads. So at DeltaStep, learning is not just fun and easy, it is rewarding too. So register for free now.